the mic is yours.
Yay, thanks, Mike. Welcome, everyone. As Mike said, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the exciting world of competitive analysis. But first, I want to talk about housekeeping. So Lorenzo will put on the slide. Okay, so just a couple of things. Could you please mute during the session? And we want everyone to get involved. So we're going to be using the chat and the raise your hand feature. If you want to click on the chat and the participants button, then on the sidebar, you can kind of follow along and see what everyone's saying and the answers to the different questions that we have. And if you have a question, if you could hold it until the end and then just pop it in the chat box using the capital Q, that would be amazing. Okay, so let's get this show on the road. So we're going to do a little bit more introduction following on Mike's fabulous introduction of us. So yes, I'm Beth Martinelli. I am the founder of cplan.it, which is an early stage tech startup, and we're focused on helping companies optimize the ROI from their digital investments. I'm a native of Louisville, but I've spent the last 25 years working in Silicon Valley at both large tech companies as well as a number of startups. I came back to Louisville a few years ago to help my mom, and we decided to build cplan.it here, and we're loving being entrepreneurs in Louisville. It's just fabulous. So I started my career, as Mike said, in marketing at Anheuser-Busch. I got an MBA at UC Davis, and then I was recruited out of Davis as one of the first non-technical employees at Intel, which was just an amazing experience. I was placed on the corporate marketing team, and we launched this, at the time, incredibly pioneering Intel Inside campaign. It was really one of the first sort of consumer approach to marketing hardware technology. So it was a fabulous experience. I then went on to head up marketing in a number of tech startup companies. I've had some really great exits, as Mike talked about, but what he didn't share is I've also had some wonderful failures that I've learned so much from. And so that's really been part of the journey. As Mike said, along the way, I've worked with VCs. I continue to do that. I help them vet deals. And on the other side, I've been advising founders for years. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Lorenzo.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lorenzo. As Mike said, I'm a student at St. Xavier High School in Louisville. At St. X, I'm the founder of the St. X Hack Club, which is a club where students can come together to learn about coding through short weekly hands-on projects. I'm also, alongside my twin sister, a co-founder of Tandem, which is a mobile platform that we're building that connects high school volunteers with lonely seniors to fight elderly loneliness. And growing up in a household with two entrepreneur parents, one thing that I realized from a really young age is that there's never enough time and there's always so much work to do. And so I offered to help, and they really took me up on that offer. I started researching competitors for their startups and was fascinated because I realized that by looking at what other people are doing, you better understand like the essence of what you're doing yourself. And I really enjoyed helping my parents, and I wanted to start working with outside entrepreneurs as well. And so I started Pistachio, which is focused on helping busy entrepreneurs, especially in Louisville, in developing their competitive analysis, partnership analysis, and pitch decks, and to help startups crack the nut to reveal their potential. And I was really fortunate to connect with Chris from Repaytient through Amplify. Thank you, Larry Horn. And we've been working together for the past 6 months to build a competitive and partnership analysis. So I'd like to turn over to Chris right now.
So thanks, Lorenzo. I am Chris Blakely. I'm the COO of Repaytient. And at Repaytient, we make paying for healthcare easier by offering hospital patients interest-free payment plans to pay their rising out-of-pocket expenses. By doing that, we give patients access to the care they need when they need it, while also helping providers and hospitals increase their cash flow by up to 30%. And reducing their collections overhead by up to 15%. I'm also born and raised Louisvillian. I did not go to Silicon Valley. I just stayed here. I've got an undergrad and graduate degrees from U of L. And as Mike said, prior to helping found Repaytient, I was the founder and CEO of Credit Ferry, which worked in the payday lending space.
Awesome. Okay, thank you, Chris. Okay, so let's get going here. So in Silicon Valley, VCs believe that the most successful companies and where they want to place their bet are ones who have figured out where they fit in the market, and that they have this distinct competitive advantage, and that they have the team that can execute flawlessly to really gain that advantage. So from their perspective, you really need to know who you're competing against and how to win. I'm not sure how many of you have read The Art of War. It's a book that was written 2,500 years ago by this guy named Sun Tzu, and it is the Bible in Silicon Valley. If you haven't read it, I recommend that you read it. So in his words, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the results of 100 battles. So today we're going to explore why competitive analysis, what is a competitive analysis, and how to build a competitive analysis so that you don't need to fear your 100 battles. And just to prove my point about the relevancy of The Art of War, let's see what Peter Thiel is saying. Peter Thiel, for those of you who aren't familiar, he's one of the Valley's thought leaders. He's founder of PayPal, founder of Palantir, early investor in Facebook. He's a venture capitalist, and as I said, he's a thought leader. But in his view, all failed companies are the same. They fail to escape competition, and that is really the essence of why we're here today, to talk about building a competitive analysis. Okay, so what is a competitive analysis? I'm sure everyone here is well acquainted with the concept, but I just wanted to be really clear that competitive analysis is not a deliverable, right? It's not this static view of competition. It's this living, breathing, ongoing process to always have a handle on the ever evolving landscape. Technology changes really quickly, and a competitor, a potential competitor that wasn't even on your radar, 6 months before, could be sort of right in your space today. And that's why you have to stay on top of it. So for example, in the last 6 months, since Lorenzo and Chris have started working together, their landscape has really changed between mergers and acquisitions and big infusion of cash. And so they've really had to kind of readjust their thinking. So the two things to remember about competitive analysis is the landscape is always changing. So you need to be on top of it all the time. And also, it's not just about the data. It's about using the data to create a winning plan, so that, so you collect all this, and Chris and Lorenzo are going to explain to you how you do that. But then it's like, okay, what do you do with that? And that's what's really important. Okay, so I just want to talk about some of the common mistakes, because I see a lot of pitch decks, and I have over the years. So I call this one self-delusion. So I always say, it's your startup, it's your product, it's your baby, it's your innovation. No one else is doing this. You got the best looking baby on the block, unmatched by any other. Well, this is what we call in the VC world kind of self-delusion, right? So it's just probably not true. So I want to tell you a story. I sat one cubicle away from Andy Grove. He was the CEO of Intel. And you could hear everything everybody was saying. That was sort of, in the early days of cubicles, and that was really the cool thing to do. But I heard him all the time. And the one thing he always said was, only the paranoid survive. And I mean, that is how he ran that business. And he always said to us, we must be steps ahead, right? Like in a game of chess, we always need to be many moves ahead of our competition, or we will never win. And so that was sort of ingrained in me, that competitive analysis is really the tool that we need to really guide our business. Okay, so let's talk about what a competitive analysis is not. Okay, so it does not replace talking to customers. Feedback from the customers is just an incredibly important thing. I actually just read an article the other morning about a startup. And this startup spoke to 300 customers before committing to a line of code. I mean, that is how important it is to understand the needs of the customer. You will not find that in a competitive analysis. Okay, the other thing is, if you're going to build a competitive analysis to make you feel better, don't waste your time. When you build it, you have to build it, sort of, baked in reality, and be willing to really look at how it is, right, and where you fit. And then don't use competitive analysis to mimic your competitors. Your job is to, innovate, right? Your job is to differentiate. Your job is to build the competitive advantage. Don't do what they do. Figure out what you do, and you do that better than anybody else. And finally, while it's important to read the industry analyst reports, don't rely on them. Right? That they typically deal with big companies across, you know, 2 dimensions. It's a rear view mirror approach, and you guys are shaping the future. All right, so let's talk about how do you build a competitive analysis. Lorenzo and Chris are going to walk you through the steps.
All right. Thanks, Beth. So before we start, I just want to see where everyone's at. And so here's a question. So please raise your hand in Zoom if you've completed a competitive analysis for your current product or business. And if you're on computer, you may need to press the reactions button to get raise hand. Okay, cool. It seems like a few people at least. Nice. Okay. Mike, Lydia, great. Okay, so a lot of people. If you raise your hand, how happy are you with your competitive analysis? And so you can just put a scale of 1 to 5 in the chat. 1 being it was a waste of time, 5 being lots of insights that you're actually taking action on. So let's see that. Fours, lots of 4s. Okay, another 4, 3 4s. Cool. Seems like some people have some good competitive analysis. Okay, so one more. Let's see that. 3. So all right. Amazing. So turning over to Chris. You in particular, why were you interested in a competitive analysis?
I think for us, for Repaytient, we wanted to understand where we stood in the marketplace, not only with our direct competitors, but also what were the other ways that folks were trying to solve this problem, our potential customers. What were the other ways that they were trying to solve this problem, whether they were doing it internally, whether they were using other tools or techniques, because all of those things are competitors of ours, including them just doing it themselves or doing nothing. So we wanted to understand where we stood in the marketplace and where we could carve out a niche and fuse the feedback that we were getting from existing customers and from customer discovery with the opportunities that were out there in the marketplace to fill a niche and fill a need that wasn't being serviced by the existing competitors in the space.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Chris. So let's move on. How do you actually, you want to build a competitive analysis, but how do you actually do it? So there are so many ways that you can do it. You could spend $500,000 to get McKinsey Consulting to do one for you, but as a startup, you don't really have those kind of resources or the time. And so what we've done is we've simplified it down to 4 simple steps. Identify, research, analyze, and validate. And Chris and I are going to walk you through them. Okay, so starting with identifying your competition, and this being the first step is really the basis upon what everything else is built. So it's really important to get this right. Let's see. Okay, so in my competitive analysis for Repaytient, the first thing that I did was talk at length with Chris and ask these 3 questions. And so, Chris, let's sort of simulate this. Do it in like a minute. Who is Repaytient's customer?
So our customers are mid-sized to large hospitals that have a minimum of $75 million in patient revenue annually, and that preferably have some sort of specialties that they offer in their facility, like orthopedic surgery, general surgery, psychiatric evaluations, things that incur large deductibles and out-of-pocket expenses to their patients that they're struggling to pay. And also that they're not standalone hospitals, that they're part of a larger health network and health system.
All right, great. So what are these customers' problems?
So their problem specifically is collecting what is owed them by their patients. Hospitals and providers have been set up to collect from the commercial payers, the insurance companies, Medicare, Medicaid, but more and more of the cost of care is being pushed onto the patient in the form of out-of-pocket expenses and deductibles. And hospitals are not set up to collect those balances. So what you're seeing is their cash on hand is going down and their bad debt is going up because they're not set up to collect from those patients, because patients don't have $3,000 or $4,000 to pay for an out-of-pocket expense, but they can't afford $100 a month. And that's where we step in.
All right, great. So Chris, what other ways are your customers solving this problem right now?
So if you look at the really large health systems, the HCAs of the world, the tenants, they're trying to solve this problem on their own. They've set up large teams to try to collect from their patients. You also see hospitals and providers using sort of a patchwork of vendors with what's called in the industry early out vendors, which is sort of an early collections agency, all the way to traditional collections agencies, writing it off as bad debt. We're even starting to see in the last couple of years, hospital systems are starting to take their patients to court to try to collect those balances. So none of these are really good solutions. And some hospitals just aren't doing anything, and they're just sort of dying slowly.
All right, great. Thank you, Chris. Brilliant. So with that information, I started my first pass. And one thing that's really important here is making sure to spread your net wide and looking in this case, competitors, both from the provider perspective and the patient perspective. And I came up with around 70 potential competitors. And yeah, that's a lot. Health tech is an incredibly hot space, and there are tons of players with different point solutions coming at it from every way possible. And I think when you look at these sometimes, the competitors are not so obvious. And so we're going to actually give you guys an example of what that might look like. So here's my question for everyone. Are Google search and Facebook social network competitors? And you can just answer yes or no in the chat. And if you want to give a brief explanation, you don't have to. Let's just see what people say. All right, some people say yes. All right, no, yes. All right, great. So congratulations if you answered yes. Google and Facebook are definitely competitors, or fierce competitors. They're both data companies that use that data to monetize. And I think most importantly, they're competitors because they're competing for the same dollars. They're going after that same minute of attention from the user. And so you need to remember that. But why am I sharing this? So as I was looking at companies in Chris's space, questions like these came up all the time, and I really had to work with Chris to find, are they a competitor? Are they not a competitor? Could they become a competitor in the future? And it really isn't always obvious, and it certainly wasn't to me, but by looking at the three questions we discussed earlier, we were really able to narrow down the focus. Okay, so I got a second question for everyone. Is there ever a situation when a company or a product does not have any competitors? And you can just put yes or no in the chat with a brief explanation if you want. So I'll give it like 20 seconds, 23 seconds. All right, got a few no's. Cool. Another no. Okay, so sounds like some of you guys should be teaching this session. So congratulations if you answered no. You definitely have competitors. And I think for this, some people like to say that they are really innovative. They don't have competitors, but you need to remember that however the customers are solving the problem currently is a competitor. And no matter how curmudgeony or slow it is, every product has competitors. Okay. So now that you know that you have competitors, how do you go about identifying them? So as we talked about before, competitors come really in all shapes and sizes. And the Venn diagram, if you look on the right here, really helps illustrate this point. So each circle represents an important dimension of competition: customer, problem, and solution. And you can kind of change those a bit in different scenarios, but those are the main three. So the intersection of all three, meaning that the company has the same customer, same problem, and same solution, is direct competitor. And these are really important to look at, obviously, but they also can't be the only ones that you look at. You also can have a competitor like number two, where it's the same customer and solution, but a different problem. Or number three, where it's the same problem, same solution, and a different customer. And all of these really have to be on your competitive radar, because although they may not be a direct competitor today, they could easily flip a switch and be a strong direct competitor tomorrow. And I kind of want to exemplify this in this next slide here. So we all know Uber, and I think most of us know Lyft, and they're direct competitors. They have the same customer, same problem, and same solution. So we know that. Let's look at another example. Uber and DoorDash. So they both have the same customer, same solution, but one transports people while the other one transports food. And so maybe at first glance, for some people at least, they may see this and they're like, they're not competitors. but it's important to realize to keep them on your radar, because they can easily create a product like tomorrow that directly competes with yours. And we've actually already seen this with in the past few years with Uber Eats, for example, which directly competes with DoorDash. Another example, I think, a good one is Uber versus Zum. And probably most of you guys haven't heard of Zum, but it's pretty much like Uber, except it's specifically targeting students and bringing students to school and to extracurricular activities. And so it has the same problem, same solution, different customer, but it's still a competitor, because like one of them could, it's entirely conceivable that one of them could easily flip a switch tomorrow. And it's really important to just to have them in your rear view mirror. Okay. Last example here, Uber versus a Chariot or a taxi app. These have the same customer, same problem. One, Uber has a platform that connects riders and drivers, and the taxi app doesn't, but they're still competitors. And so again, these are just really important to think about. Okay, so this is my final question. You guys are getting a little bit tired with all the questions. So what is the most formidable, most diabolical, meanest, nastiest competitor that entrepreneurs always forget? And even if you don't know, just put a guess in the chat, even if it's a joke or something. Complacency. Yeah, that's a great answer. Okay. Can we get a few more interesting ones here?
Yeah, this is a bit tricky, this question.
Yeah, it is. Oh, okay, we got a status quo. Great. Let's see. Okay. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but yeah, so if you answered status quo, congratulations. Do nothing, no decision. It's really important to remember that selling against inertia is difficult, really difficult. And so you need to make sure that in your competitive analysis, you're reflecting the fact that the hardest part is creating a solution that's compelling enough to your customer that they'll consider switching. And so it's really, you have to include this in the mix. Yeah. So we've identified our competition, and now you have to do some research. So where do you research? There's a bunch of different places, including a company's website, Crunchbase, Owl, or social media, or like LinkedIn. All these places are great. When I was working with Chris, it was incredibly difficult to understand specifically what competitors did, because especially in the healthcare space, the majority of websites really don't offer great information. So I really had to look at multiple sources and try to create a mapping of this each potential customer's customer problem and solution. And so even if you don't find what you're looking for out of the gate, just make sure to keep peeling back the onion, and over time you'll be able to understand each competitor. So once I was well acquainted with the sources and the competitors, I specifically researched, you can see the 18 I have here, 18 data points for my competitive analysis. And these included company specifics, product descriptions, and target customers. And these may be different for you. They may not be 18, there may be more or less, but it's very important to make sure and standardize these across, like standardize these data elements. So then later you can analyze across a multitude of competitors. And yeah, so I'll just leave this up for a second in case anyone wants to look at them. So you can kind of see also how we have divided a little bit: company, customers, product. All right. So once I had done the research, sorry. This is an example right here of one of the many competitor slides that I did for Repaytient. This is VisitPay, and Chris is going to walk us through some of the important attributes about what's on this slide.
Thanks, Lorenzo. So what this view gives us is a holistic view in a summary form of what is important about VisitPay. So, what we're really looking to glean from this is what exactly are they offering? What is their product, and who are they offering it to? Are they offering a product that is exactly like ours? Is it different? How is it different? Are there things that they're doing that we would deem that they're doing better than us? Are there places where our product offering is stronger? And then are they offering it to the same customers that we're offering it to? If not, who are they offering it to? Are we missing potentially a market segment that we haven't seen that we could be going after as well. And then from VisitPay's perspective, what do they think their key differentiators are? How are they marketing their product? What do they think is better about their product than other competitors in the space? But something else that we are very keen to understand about a competitor is, who are they partnered with? Do they have partnerships? If they do, who are they partnered with? What are those partnerships bringing not only to VisitPay, but what are those partnerships bringing to VisitPay's partners? And it's also important for us to understand, what does that company's backing look like? How are they well capitalized? Do they have a lot of dry powder to compete in the space? Or are they just sort of limping along and aren't going to be a competitor that can aggressively compete in the market space? So this is what this sort of single page summary, pretty quickly you can get up to speed on what the competitors are doing and how strong they may be in the market space.
All right, great. Thank you, Chris. Those are some great insights. So we've identified, we've researched. Now we actually have to do probably the most important part, and often the most difficult, is analyzing the data and then generating actionable ideas from that data. So once I had done the research, I worked with Chris extensively to try to uncover patterns, talk through similarities and differences, and answer three main questions: why us, why not them, and how to win. And again, it's really important here to have a sparring partner in this. So definitely go to your co-founders, your advisors, your colleagues, and brainstorm and work through this data. Okay, and so once you've once you have all the data, you need to also find ways to depict the data. And there's lots of ways you can do this. Common ones are Magic Quadrant or the pedal and the XY plot. And a lot of this definitely depends on your situation and your industry. And they all have unique benefits, but I just want to look at this one here, which is the competitive matrix. And in this matrix, we looked at product features, the underlying technology, and strategic partnerships, which are only a key few of the original 18 data points. And then on the left, we have a focus list of competitors. And turning over to Chris here, Chris is going to walk us through how these points created a framework from which he could quickly assess the competitive landscape and look for patterns.
So yeah, thanks, Lorenzo. We sort of determined that of those 18, these are the 5 that we thought were most important key factors on not only assessing ourselves, but assessing the competition in the market space and how we all sort of stacked up against each other. And what this really illuminated for us was that the things that we considered important, we are good at. But there are things in the market space that we had blind spots about. Specifically, we are experts in finance. We are not necessarily technology experts, but there are a lot of technology solutions in the market space today looking to solve similar problems that we are trying to solve for providers. So what that's allowed us to do is create a plan moving forward on how we can partner with technology experts to establish partnerships that will make our product offering much more competitive in the market space, but in the turn also make their products more competitive in the market space as well.
All right, great. Thank you, Chris. So we've identified, we've researched, we've analyzed, and we're almost there. We just got to do this last step, validating the ideas. And part of this means testing. So moving on. So when you do a competitive analysis, it can really inform a number of your deliverables, including your positioning, sales strategy, et cetera. And we could have gone, I think, 8 different ways as the next steps. But whatever you do, it's really important to test, test, test. And you must validate these hypotheses through iterations. And in this competitive analysis, we assessed that the first priority were partnerships, both channel partners and technology partners. And in this next slide, Chris is going to explain to you how we arrived at that decision.
Yeah, so like I was saying previously, we determined what we are really good at, which our team are experts in financing, structuring financial payments, structuring payments that are budget friendly for the patients that will ensure the highest likelihood that they pay that balance in full, but also structuring the advances and the increased cash flow and accelerated cash flow to the hospitals, and making sure that they get the biggest bang for their buck when they're working with us on that side. We are not technologists necessarily. We leverage technology to make our product offering better, more effective, and more efficient for our customers, both on the hospital side and the patients. But we are not technology-driven experts. Our product is not a technology product at its core. There are lots of companies that are doing interesting things in the healthcare space where technology is their core, but they don't necessarily offer a specific financing product like ours. So one of the things that we identified was this is a way for us to get increased distribution while also increasing our own product offering by identifying potential strategic partners where we could marry our products and create a much more differentiated offering in the market space and have a win-win for both companies. So that's how we're moving forward, not only competing against what we would consider our direct competitors in the finance space, but also looking to partner with technology experts so that we can increase the efficacy of both of our products moving forward.
All right, thank you, Chris. Those are great insights. So based on that understanding, we began to do some work on partnerships, and this next slide reflects the value proposition for one of the potential partners we identified. And Chris, do you want to go through this a little bit?
Yeah, so Cedar's one of the companies that we've identified that we'll be reaching out to on a potential partnership. They're well funded, they're well capitalized, so they have the resources to build and grow their company. They're heavily involved in the technology space. Their product is very technology based. They don't really offer strong payment plan options and don't offer accelerated cash flow to the provider, which is exactly what we do. So we think that this would be a natural fit for a partnership that would make both entities stronger moving forward.
All right, great. Thank you, Chris. So just to summarize, for a simplified approach, we focused on identify, research, analyze, and validate. And again, this is very situational, but we believe that this simplified model can be applied to any competitive analysis, and we hope that you will use it in yours. And so we're going to go into some Q&A.
Okay, yes. So
great.
first off, I just want to thank Lorenzo and Chris, not only for this presentation, but just your work together the last 6 months has been incredibly impressive. Like Lorenzo said, it's a very dense, highly populated marketplace. It's ever evolving. It's hot, and it was really, and they work together really well to sort of peel back that onion and sort of figure out how do we play, like how do we go to market to win. So first off, I just want to say congratulations to both of you guys, because I think this is excellent effort. Now we're going to move to the Q&A. And if you want to type any questions you have in the chat. And while we're waiting for the questions, I actually had a few questions. So I was going to ask Chris first. And I asked him this earlier, but I was always want to know, like, what were you most surprised about in going through the process?
So I think, when we originally entered this process, began this process, I think specifically me, was mostly interested in understanding sort of the companies that we consider our direct competitors and what are their offerings, what are they doing in the marketplace, and how are we different, and how do we differentiate ourselves because we think we've got a better product than what they're offering. Well, I still think that I think as we sort of evolved this research, it showed that there are a number of technology-based solutions that are focused on patient engagement and making sure that the patient's experience delivers the best outcome from a healthcare perspective for that patient. And they will offer the ability to make payments on their balances, but they don't offer structured payment plans. They don't offer the accelerated cash flow and improved cash flow that our product offers. And as we evolved, it was, okay, maybe the best way to move forward is not only just focusing on our own product, but also focusing on how we could partner with someone who does the things that we don't do well, and we could offer the things that we do well to them that they don't do well. So I think that was the biggest learning for me, is that there's a huge opportunity for us to potentially partner in a very strategic way to make not only Repaytient the best offering in the marketplace, but also our partners offering more robust and better too.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so we have a couple of questions in the chat, and this is from Mike for Lorenzo and Chris. What step in the process do you find most difficult, and which takes the longest?
I can go first, I guess. I thought,
Sure.
yeah, analyzing, I think, is often the most difficult one, because it can be a little bit of an arduous process to collect all that information, but when it really comes to analyzing it, it takes a lot of thought and working together with Chris to figure out what works and what doesn't, and then going back through and reiterating the ideas that we come up with. So if we come up with a few future steps immediately, and those might not work out, and we need to come back and see what we learned, and then find a way to move forward. And so I think that is the most difficult step.
How about for you,
Yeah,
Chris?
I would agree with that. The research is difficult. From someone who, is running a startup and you've got your head down, sometimes the starting of the process is the most difficult step, because you're busy, servicing your existing customers. You may be doing fundraising, you're selling to customers. Sometimes it's difficult to get the whole process started, but once you do, you really start to find some good insight, and then that really helps you continue to move forward on the process, because it's so valuable.
All right, okay. So we have another question. Let me get it here, hang on. Okay, when we pitch and show the competitive matrix, I was often told that a product feature comparison is not what investors are looking for. So what should be included in the pitch deck? Okay, so I'll give you sort of my 2 cents, and then you guys can weigh in on yours. Okay, so it's very situational. And so what I look for is, I'm trying to understand what are the key or critical features, like that are like most important, not necessarily product features, right? But I'm trying to understand what it is that's being offered to solve a problem, because I'm looking at it from the outside in, and I want to see those, like the essence of that. I want to see that. So it's not like a feature for feature kind of thing. I'm not interested in that, because I'm trying to find out is, what is the differentiator, right? And so that is what is most important to the customer, and what's going to solve their problem in a better way, a different way, as opposed to sort of a head to head. So it is very situational. I'm trying to think, is there any other way I can explain that? So I guess your job is to boil it down to the essence. Your job is to understand your customer's pain point and problem so well, right, that you can say the handful of things that are going to make a difference to them. And that's what I want to see for me in a competitive matrix. Do you guys have anything to add, or?
I think the only other thing I would add is that when you're pitching investors, I think one of the things you want to do as the founders of the company is you want to let the investor know that you're the expert in the space. You want them to know that you know as much as there can be known about the competitive landscape, what the customer's problem is, how the folks that are solving it aren't doing as good of a job as you can do, and then what you can do to make sure you deliver on the product that you've developed. You don't want to ever sit down in front of an investor, pitch them on what the competitive landscape looks like, and them know more than you.
Oh, I think
because
that's right.
You might as well just stop then and get up and leave. You have to, from my perspective, that's what you're trying to do with a competitive landscape, is demonstrate your expertise and your knowledge of the space, and that what you're doing is differentiated and will win long term compared to the competitors.
Because I do I've been in a lot of the venture meetings with the founders, and they really like to have a debate. Like, they really want to have a conversation with you. It's like Chris said, like, you need to know more. They're going to definitely know something, right? And they're going to want to know that you've really thought it through. And again, sort of emphasizing sort of this from the outside in, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the customer, and everything should be looking at it from that perspective, right? What is their problem? Right. And then you need to know, how the competitors are going after solving that problem. And as Chris said earlier, the adjacent competitors, right? Not necessarily the direct competitors. And you have to paint that picture for them. And, and you don't have to be right on everything, but you have to be intelligent, and you have to be really well versed, and you have to be able to have a debate. They have to be able to trust, right, that you know enough about this, and that you are going to be evolving with that, and keep learning and growing to stay ahead of them. Okay, let's see what next. Okay, so I have a question for Lorenzo and Chris. So you guys have been working together for 6 months. So does it take 6 months to do a competitive analysis?
Okay, so no. Well, yes and no, actually. So for me, obviously, I'm a student, so I'm only working part-time. That means it's going to take a bit longer. I think if you're doing this more full-time, you could probably get this sort of, I'm hesitant to say done, but a month or so, you can put something really strong together. And I'm hesitant again to say done because, like we said at the beginning, a competitive analysis is really ongoing, so it's never actually done. But yeah, also a lot of that 6 months again was going. Part of it was competitive analysis, and then I was also going through like doing a partnership analysis and doing the next steps on that. So yeah.
Chris, what do you think?
I think if you're doing it for yourself from the company's perspective, you're probably going to be more of an expert on the space. I think there was a learning curve for Lorenzo, explaining what goes on in health. Healthcare is a fifth of the U.S. economy. So it's a really dense, opaque piece of our economy. So, getting him up to speed, I think, while it wasn't a challenge, he's very bright and caught on very quickly. It's just, there was a learning curve there. I think that probably added some time on as well.
Yes. And then do you feel like sort of not knowing about the space gave him a different perspective, or asked?
Yeah, sometimes that can be a good thing too, because he's not walking in with preconceived notions. He's looking at it with, from a blue sky perspective. It's all fresh and new to him. So he doesn't have any scar tissue. And thinking that he knows the industry as it is, as opposed to
right.
the way things actually are.
So, okay, any other questions? Oh, okay. Once I've completed my competitive analysis, how do I use the information to make smart decisions and changes with my business? Okay, who'd like to? Chris, you want to try that?
Yeah, I'll take that one. It's just another piece of data for you. I think Beth said early on, I think, Beth, you mentioned this, this is not a replacement for feedback from your customer, right? The feedback from your customer is always going to be the most important data that you get. And probably the thing that's going to drive the vast majority of decisions that you make about your business and how to be competitive. But the competitive landscape lets you know, one, what are other folks doing? How are other people trying to solve this problem? Is that a solution that is better than ours? If not, why? It can help you tailor your sales pitch and your marketing pitches to your competitors if you know, or to your customers, if you know what other people are offering and how you are differentiated. Because when you're going in and you're trying to sell to your customer, especially in a B2B sales environment, they're going to know other options that are out there. They may have worked with other options before. They may be working with one of your competitors now. So you need to be knowledgeable enough to know what those competitors do. What you don't want to do is be in a sales meeting with a potential customer and get caught off guard by a question that they ask about a competitor or some new solution that's in the space and how you're differentiated. So, I think the feedback you're getting from customers and potential customers is always probably the number one data nugget in your business. But knowing what the competitive landscape looks like and understanding what's coming from a competitive perspective can help you tailor that message and tailor your product.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's a good point. Mike graciously put our contact information, like our LinkedIn and that. And if you all have any questions for Chris, Lorenzo, for me, please reach out, because we're really happy to help and answer any questions.
Awesome. I'm going to hit stop on